10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good luck, studio.
Oh, it's just what you've been waiting for, dears. Another episode of the Shy Life podcast coming right up.
Oh, it's the Shy Life podcast.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record.
It's the quiet ones you've got to watch, you know.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Oh boy, he's not all that shy, is right.
Blimey, Governor, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Excellent.
507.
Bonjour et bienvenue au podcast The Shy Life.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shy Life podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How are you doing? I'm good. Well, I've got Nick here today. Hello. But we are also going to talk to another guest who has been on the show before. Usually when he's been on, I've asked the regulars to guess who it is, and they've come up with ridiculous suggestions. So I'm not going to ask Nick to do it. Nick knows who the guest is, and well, it's Muffleyontour'S, and we'll run the theme music. And when we come back, we'll be talking to him. No regulars involved this time. Nobody's going to be.
Apart
guessing.
from me.
Well, no, yes, you're a regular, but you know who the guest is. So right, let's run that theme music.
Darling, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Yes, but it's a positive thing, Paul. The highlight, the Shy Life.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
Hello, Paul.
I'll go anywhere for a potato.
Delicious.
Hello, captors. How are you?
You quite like a big bang, don't you, Paul?
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, I hope he hasn't found out my secret. Do you think he has?
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life podcast.
I like that.
Yeah, I am strangely drawn to Yeti Uncle John's ankles as well.
Has the Shy Life podcast slowed down? I don't think so.
It's all green and easy. Yum, 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 yum.
Has anyone seen my hot sausage? Hello. How you doing?
Yeah, all good. It's a bit grey and dreary here in Leeds. I don't know what it's like for you folks.
Yes.
It's pretty wet.
Yeah. The only good thing about that is that it means that I don't have to go out and do the weeding today. So, yes.
You haven't done a run. You haven't done a run today.
Oh, God forbid, no. I had a lie-in and I did a dawn raid at the supermarket when it was nice and quiet. And then I've just been hibernating ever since. And Angelique's downstairs watching French TV, watching like gruesome French true crime things as well. So yes, that will keep her entertained as long as it doesn't give her ideas. That's all. Yeah.
I came back sopping wet from the laundrette just before Paul arrived. So yeah, I've had a gut full of it already. I'm only going out once more, and that's to get a take. Paul's treating us to a takeaway, so hopefully it'll be reasonably dry when I'm out there.
Is this going to be a Chinese by any chance?
Sure is.
But sometimes I have the Indian option at the Chinese. So.
Okay.
But I think I quite like the Chinese Indian curries.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a bit sort of Chinesed out this week because I was in the office on Thursday and I got nominated to go into town and do a group wasabi order.
Yeah.
And then I actually did have a Chinese chicken curry yesterday. So it's been gnocchi with a sort of cream of ragu for lunch, which sounds more fancy than it is. It's basically just what's in the fridge and just throw it in a pan.
My office is just smack by the canteen. It's the last office you can get before you get the canteen. So
yeah.
we don't really want for it.
Yeah, we don't have a canteen, unfortunately. Oh, there's like a cafe, but it's ridiculously overpriced. So, I tend to avoid it. So, Nick, the thing is, I think I've said this to Paul as well, I feel like I already know you in a weird way. In a nice way.
That's what I'm kind of hoping that, sort of And you know, if I go gaga, all my life is, or you know, the Shy Life podcast is the equivalent of my life flashing before my eyes in audio.
Absolutely, and I just want to doff the proverbial about your films, which I've been looking over again this morning. Run Faster Than the World, The Old School Lie, Prison in the Sun, which I was enjoying very much just before lunch. No, I mean, I hope you take this right. You should be very proud of that body of work, because I know sort of from a creative point of view, it must have been a real slog, and some of them more of a slog than others to sort of get over the line.
I think when you look back, you think, why on earth didn't I actually buy? Because until One More Bow, I didn't have a video camera. So I was borrowing Paul's, I was borrowing Elaine's, I was renting them, which was...
My dad had one as well, didn't we? So he borrowed his sometimes.
You always got a horrendously sort of knackered machine when you rented. And I thought, why didn't one that actually go out and... Because I'm a generation that grew up with renting. So I just rented everything. And my parents were very kind of... You kind of grew up with that sort of frugal kind of, you sure you want to buy this, kind of. But
absolutely, yes.
This is basically what they all look like on DVD. So I basically, my very good friend Keith, I digitalised and then he put them into actual boxes, and he did. That's the one for Prison in the Sun. Sorry.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So they're sort of all here. Apart unfortunately from Decry the Woman, which was directed by Andy Ching, and he's been saying for 13 years, no, don't worry, I'll do that cut, and now of course physical media is sailing away from us, hopefully not permanently, and I'm still waiting for him to do it.
Of the films or those kind of projects you've done, I was thinking, like, what was your... I'll phrase this in a certain way. What was your most enjoyable project, and what do you think is your best project? So that's two questions that might not be the same.
It's a very shrewd question, actually, because I think probably the most enjoyable was Run Faster, because I just got immersed in the story. A tragic sideline to it is my girlfriend had just died. And so I was kind of, I've built up this big project, and on the very day before it happened, she died, and I've kind of had all these people relying on me to get me through this. So I just absolutely, completely went for it.
Sure.
And I was just blind. So, I mean, inevitably, when you look back at these things, you wish you'd gone back. Because I spent 5 months trying to find the lead, because it was originally written for a lady called Jo Walpole, who I'd seen in Shakespeare, and I thought, and I hardly knew her. And I said, well, look, you can script edit it with me and do all these things. And of course, she buggered off, and because she wanted to be a second row from the back of Mikado or something like that. So
indeed.
I felt it dumped upon. So I eventually found Renata, but that time I could, again, why didn't I buy a computer? It was stupid. It was very expensive to kind of rewrite, because I had this rather expensive sort of halfway between a word processor and a typewriter. And I wish I'd spent 5 months sort of polishing the script rather than that. But yeah, that was an emotional journey.
Sure.
On the back of that, One More Bow was enormous fun. And we actually had time for rehearsals.
Amazing.
And we had rehearsals. That was we've got most of the rehearsal footage on some of the other ones. I must put it out there, but we got the two girls right on that, and it was a nice fun one. And I actually had my own camera, which a weight was lifted from everyone's shoulders. Best one, it depends really what you're looking. I always try to do a completely different thing.
Sure.
Comedy or slapstick and everything. I think probably from a technical point of view and scripting point of view, Different Colour Graveyard, which was the very last one I did.
Yeah.
Because I was working with somebody I was very close to, a friend I was very close to. So I pushed her and pushed myself at the same time, because we waited 10 years to make the film. And so so that was probably the technical one. It was only when you put it together you realise you made something unwatchably harrowing. Okay, right. But again, one of the things that sunk the boat a bit on that was we were going to do it semi-professionally with a company that came in, and they were wanting to sort of make it over fancy. They wanted sort of CGI bits when they didn't need to be CGI bits.
Oh gosh!
And there was a very nice guy called Eric, who was almost like a vicar. He was very kind of, you like it, going to get you through this, and I hope he's not listening to this. But he was almost over optimistic, sort of, well, okie dokie, and I'll be the director in this, but I'm not used to the big technical equipment. And then there was his partner, whose name escapes me, probably fortunately, who was a beard, very laconic, kind of rather surly business management person who brought it all down to earth with a bang. He was kind of like, well, I want to see a copy of your other stuff. It all took it down to brass tacks, and it kind of was a bit of a downer, and they wanted all these kind of fancy contracts for people, and I thought, well, there was some technical problem where I wasn't even sleeping, and they were saying, oh, they casually said 2 days before, oh, get in touch with the broker, and what does a broker even do? I've never seen one before, and so in the end we just let's do this. What Gareth, who was in Prison in the Sun, he's the tall guy with curly hair. He always calls out a guerrilla filmmaking, and we just all the four of us, my wife, his wife, and us, we just took off to Cornwall and just did the show here, and to hell with health and safety. We were walking on jagged rocks and heights.
Lovely.
And we just made it happen. And
nice and spontaneous. Yeah,
that's right. So I think that was a special one, I think. But no, it was a very, very enjoyable period in my life.
Sure. Are you currently in a theatre group at the moment? I know you've done theatre stuff. Is that an ongoing thing at the moment?
Well, yes and no. I used to be in the Alderbury Players and Studio Theatre, both of which I liberally nicked actors from.
Of course.
I'm with. Well, I think there's no sort of membership or anything, but Richard Clark, who was in Inquisition in Law, he has his own film company now called CP, and I've said, he said, oh, do you want to come and do something? And I said, well, I'll do writing and I'll do acting, but I'm beyond that. I'm the technical aspect was really kind of a secondary thing to me. I was never very good at it. But I've been in a couple of short films that he made for competitions, and I also played the Savile Row tailor in. I
saw the tailor. Yes, very nice, very nice. Very
and
nice.
I'm just waiting for him to kind of get a move on with the next project. Really, I think he's because he's now doing it professionally. He's doing promotional films for other things, so we're just waiting on the next kind of thing. And I've done a rewrite of Inquisition in Law because he was interested in doing it again. Won a stage show that Paul actually saw back in '95 that I wrote called Cradle Snatcher, which was about a gay couple and who found they had a connection. And that was actually quite controversial at the time, but I've rewritten it as a film. So not a very long film, but a film. But I've kind of, that was my job this year. So I got that out of the way now. So, and I've just written, I'm kind of writing now, just in case things get picked up. I've just done a slapstick comedy for kids called Pressure or Anything, which is about a school science project which goes wrong. And I'm just doing it's a bit highbrow. It's a sort of parody of the Samuel Beckett plays, which were very sort of acerbic and weird, and it's going to be Tom from Tom and Jerry doing a monologue in that style.
Okay.
It's a what if he had eaten Jerry in the first 20 seconds of the first film.
Yeah.
That they'd done, and the realization that he's killed his career, by eating this creature. But yeah, that's going to be my next writing. But I just hope Richard brings it on, really.
Sure.
But, theatre-wise, I'm always open to suggestions, but it's really not. My wife's not all that well, so I'm on a leave her for long periods. So I'm a little bit nervous about committing to theatre at the moment. But
sure,
I'm in the market for coming back.
That's lovely. And bringing Paul in here, the book. Where are you both with the book at the moment?
Over to Mr. Chandler.
Well, still slowly doing the. Well, it was all formatted and ready to go, and because of Lulu changing its procedures, it's become very difficult to get it on there. And then Martin Holmes was helping. You almost have to make the file an A5 file, because I always worked on an A4 file, and then you just put it on Lulu and it would squeeze it and do it, and it would all be fine. So I think I'm working on an A5 version of it, but it still looks like an A4 version of it on the screen. So it's very disconcerting. All I know is that all of the neatly sort of formatted pages are no longer neatly formatted, and I'm having to try and neatly format them, presumably in an A5 format. I hope I don't get to the end and find this isn't what's been happening.
I'm quite willing to help.
It's difficult. It's just sort of difficult doing.
It's the one outstanding project that I've been involved with, which hasn't quite reached the finishing line.
The rheumatism hasn't helped as far as that's concerned. Although, working on Word files is or typing things is harder than editing. Luckily, otherwise there wouldn't have been many podcasts. Luckily, editing podcasts is more of a light touch. But I'm about halfway through. But I might end up passing it to you. It's just I'm worried that if I do that, then it'll end up half of it will inevitably. It will look different. The second half.
I'll just have to be very observant.
It used to be so easy.
Back in the day, we whacked it out.
It's like when I used to do the Shy Yeti on location videos using Windows Movie Maker, and that was so simple to do. You could just edit them really quickly, and then they just decided to make Windows Movie Maker harder to use to the point where it no longer exists.
Just for fun.
And it was just nice to be able to have an editing package that was really easy to use. Because I know there are other ones out there, but they're so much more complicated than is needed.
Absolutely. In terms of locations, I mean, do you have any sort of favourite Salisbury locations which were a bit interesting, or you go back to, or have a certain sort of feel about them, would you say?
We used a lot of them in the Sutton Park days.
Of course,
that was the good thing about doing Sutton Park is that obviously when you're doing the films you have to think a lot more carefully, or whereas with Sutton Park you can go, I found a good location yesterday, should we go and film there? But we did with the films and Sutton Park. Sometimes we were going to do like that Pepperbox Hill, which is outside of Salisbury, and I think we probably filmed there before.
We did,
but then we went there to do a recce for Prison in the Sun, and then also would have been filming some Sutton Park at the same time.
That's right.
While we were up there. So
Pepperbox, I remember very much as a kid. We always used to go up there for picnics, and I think we'd probably been there even before that, and we needed to recreate this Sutton Park. At the point I wrote Prison in the Sun, I'd never been to Sutton Park, so I just so we needed an approximation, and I brought it back. We used it again for Rosie Lens, so that would certainly be one of my favourites. One I kept going back to, and it's in loads, is your home, your parental home, which features hugely in Sutton Park. But we did, and the surrounding fields as well. There's this amazing field.
The church next door.
The waterfall in Rosie Lens, that was from Charlton.
Oh, really?
The woods beyond that were in for the chase scene in Gift from Eternity.
And you used the church next door to my parents in Rosie Lens.
Yes, you introduced me to that creepy.
But then when it kind of morphs into it being, there's a church up in the woods that's more ramshackle. So that's also where the ramshackle chapel is, or church is also where I have my death sequence in
Run Faster. The two locations. I just round the back so people wouldn't recognise it. But I have to say, on Rosie Lens, our director Andy Candish, who's a good friend of mine, he's now an actor. He almost sunk the boat for getting permission for the church because he told the vicar, "Oh, we're doing the film about drugs. Can we use your church?" Kind of like it's not quite all about drugs, you know. So he a little bit too brazen there. We nearly lost it.
The other source of locations, which I partly used in Sutton Park, but they were just also, some of them were just like known locations. But in the 6th year at the grammar school, you start to do sport. You could avoid doing like the contact sports. You could go for a cross country run, and in the lower 6th, my friend Robin and I turned our cross country runs because they didn't bother sending any teachers to monitor you. So Robin and I used to turn that into like a circle meeting basically for whatever we were writing, but I definitely discovered some bits of Salisbury I didn't know quite so well. Like the broken bridges, and also you went up to Old Sarum, but it's not that I didn't know about Old Sarum, but I didn't necessarily know the ways you could get to it, the different ways you could approach Old Sarum by footpath. The chalk pit, but that's near your parents, or was.
I mean, there's a chalk pit in Harnham where I lived at the time, and we used it on a Blake 7 spoof we did before the films really got going. We were kind of like feelers out and seeing what we could do. And we used it extensively in that, and it features in Decry the Woman. And I think Andrew Candish always wanted to film there. He never got round to it.
Yeah, episode 50.
Genesis of the Wogans as well.
Yeah, episode 50 of Sutton Park. I was trying. There was a literal cliffhanger.
There was.
I tried to make it look like we were falling off. I can't remember who was attacking who, but some of us were falling off. It was Robin, Harry, and I again.
Right. And I did a in Genesis of the Daleks in joke. Because it looked just like there was a wheel or something buried in the ground. And
here we go.
From Genesis of the Daleks, and Harry Fulton was with us.
Perfect.
And I said to you, sorry, I can't resist this. And Harry, I'm standing on a landmine. I just couldn't resist it.
I would also, I think that's one of the first times I went to the Laverstock Hill, or whatever you want to call it, where the
panda,
where the there was a chalk panda carved into again, some of the footpaths I knew it was there, but I never actually necessarily been up there or knew about the footpaths. So it was one of those things where cross country run benefited my creative process because it was like a big recce for going.
But your parents' house in Charlton was marvellous. We used it again and again. It's doubled as so many things. I used their garage in Gift from Eternity when with the kidnap, and we used your dining room in Smile Again and upstairs. And in fact, I don't think there's any part of your parents' building we haven't.
I used to use the loft. I used to use the loft to film in. But we filmed in your parents' loft as well.
We did.
No location went unturned.
Location was safe from us.
No, but we're talking about like that Pepperbox Hill place we went to, but it was also possible to walk because actually Pepperbox Hill is sort of in the direction of my parents' village, but there's loads of fields between it, and I think once I realised that I could walk from the couple of times we went to Pepperbox Hill, and then I walked all the way back, and I was also saying to you earlier because my mum found a Sutton Park tape under the bed the other day, and we weren't sure whether it had been there for ages or whether when Nick was doing stuff it had it just got pushed under the bed.
It wasn't one of the missing ones, alas, but and there's very, very, very few episodes that we're missing now.
But we were watching it because you thought, well, I'll convert it again.
I'll do it. I'll convert it.
Did it have the words "Fury from the Deep" written on it?
Oh, if I.
But it reminded me because when I finished my degree in '95, I was unemployed and living with my parents for the sort of summer of '95, which was.
Sounds familiar, yes.
It was nice really, because I wasn't expecting. As long as I did the application forms, it was lovely weather. My parents weren't expecting much rent money, so
you didn't give them much.
I did, but then again, there was I had plenty of time to kill, so there was a nice walk across the fields from. So I'd sign on. I think I had to sign on around lunchtime. Or just before, or just after lunchtime. Then so I'd meet Nick for lunch, and then I'd walk back across the fields back to my parents' house, which was, 4 or 5 miles. But then I had that location was my stage for whatever Sutton Park episodes I was doing. I just filmed the whole time I was walking, because I was by myself. But it was at the time when I had the various puppet characters or other characters that I was playing. So you wouldn't see anybody, and I just used the next however long it would take me 2 or 3 hours to walk home, and you were in the middle of nowhere, so you could argue with yourself playing different characters. No one was going to pop up. You might see a dog. We saw a dog on the video, so might have seen the odd dog, but
they didn't laugh at you.
No, I didn't.
I think I've just been recently watching some of those Sutton. Is that like around 1551?
I think
that's if that rings a bell.
What that the Nick was in was earlier than that, but
800s.
But not to say I wouldn't have. Well, I was also unemployed. Well, I was unemployed for a couple of months in '96, where I had a job, but the clearance took so long that I had to go on unemployment for 2 months. So I might well have been walking across fields in '96 as well, but
I mean, with my background, I grew up in a village outside Cambridgeshire, outside Cambridge, and I think there's probably sort of parallels, and there was quite a lot of walking around fields. But obviously, the thing with Cambridge is it's so flat, it's a bit sort of uninteresting. But one of the sort of curious things, which I'm sure you folks would have jumped at the chance at, is that just outside our village, there's a load of radio telescopes.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to it at some point. It's the Mullard Radio Observatory. It's actually on the old Cambridge to Oxford railway line. And when I was really little, I just assumed that all villages had radio telescopes.
You would, wouldn't you? I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And going back to Blake 7, I can remember I have this thing where memory plays tricks on you. So I remember Blake 7 more after Blake had left, and we'd play Blake 7 at school, and I was told I was going to be Villa. It's like, why want to be Villa? I said, no, you're Villa. And obviously Paul Swindon, who was our sort of not exactly gang leader, but sort of the one that was at the centre of things. Obviously, he was Avon, and so
they always if school friends always nab the best parts.
Absolutely.
I would have wanted to be Villa then.
Oh yeah, well you were Villa.
I know.
He was Villa in our Blake 7 thing. I don't think it's on YouTube, is it? But it's around.
We didn't have leather. I had bin bags.
You had bin bags, yes. And I was Travis, and so was Andy Trowbridge, and we had two Travises. We had Brian Croucher and Stephen Greif. I was Stephen Greif, and he was Brian Croucher.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
And we did. There's Andrew Trowbridge and Lisa did a sequel to that called Blake 7: The Return, which we took about 18 months. Where I think the tapes are currently still lost. But I'd love to see. I'd like to get hold of that.
The early footage of that that's readily available is on Sutton Park behind the scenes. And in fact, there have been episodes that have gone audio that have gone on audio that I know are taken from that, because everybody it's like 98 and everybody is together, which was becoming rarer and rarer by that point.
It was.
So yeah.
But what was there were some nice moments in that as well, which I'd like to see again, because your character Otto, who was an original character, a bounty hunter, and you had all these bounty bars around your waist, and you got shot, and it says in the script, there's an agonizing scream. I thought, you're giving an agonizing scream to Mr. Chandler. Lock up your scenery. It's going to be chewed within a much. And George Watson, who was playing another character, Federation Guard or whatever, he and I got sent behind a tree in disgrace for laughing. And we had to because you had to fall dead right in front of us. And we were also, when you were lying there, a dog took great interest in you. And Servalan, who was played by a very short, bespectacled lady, was kind of, we'll take away the body. And we picked up Paul, and his clothes came, but his body didn't. It sort of stayed and kind of melted into his clothes.
Melted away.
And the other thing,
I can't do that these days.
The other thing was there was one particularly wet day where I was having a scene with Servalan. Servalan was there, and I was holding her at gunpoint about there because we were under an umbrella, and the script melted. It was done on a bold kind of wording, and the rain came down, and when all the words went all bleh. And
melting in those days.
And and I wish somebody had asked me what I thought of the script. I said, "What can I say?" The words just flowed off the page.
Very good.
Nobody asked me to, but no. I'd like to see.
I'll just ask one because we're talking about Servalan, and I'm not. I'll try and phrase it in sort of polite. Did you ever meet Servalan at all at any Jackie Pierce at conventions? I think you did. Yes,
I did. Did you?
I can't remember anymore. I can't remember who I have and haven't met. But I would say is I wish I had read her autobiography. She probably hadn't written it, but when I did go to some Blake Seven conventions. I went to Who 7 1 and 2, and the second one was with Lisa, but I can't remember who.
She was one of the guests.
I can't remember. No, Lisa was one of them. Well, she. But I can't remember exactly who was which one. So I'm sure I did meet her, but I later read her autobiography, and she was born where I live now. So and if it was if I met her in the noughties, I would have been living there, and I wouldn't have realised that So I would have felt we would have had a really interesting conversation about that because
she was very nice. My wife and I met her in 2003 at a signing in Barking, and she's everything you expect her to be, quite outrageous. I mean, one of the organisers turned to her and said, "I used to know your dentist," and she goes, "My dentist topped himself, darling."
Oh gosh.
We talked a lot about because we knew she lived for a time in Cornwall. She was she lived in sort of artistic digs in Cornwall, and we've got a friend called Linda who was not quite her neighbour but as near as damn it, and she used to pose nude for local students.
Oh, there you go.
She was quite open about it, right. And that was quite.
Yeah. I never met her. I saw her. I was at a signing in London. This will be a whole other story another time. But a friend of mine, very big Peter Wyngarde fan, and Peter Wyngarde was sort of the main guest at this signing. And she was there floating about, being very Jackie Pierce. I do remember that. Yeah, but I didn't get to actually say hello. I went to the loo with David Warner, if I can phrase that in the right way, as well.
I went to the loo with Noel Edmonds, but that was very random. That was very random because we were in some down in Cornwall, in some pub on a motorway, and when I was with my parents, and we got there, and he'd obviously been asked to be put at the furthest extent from where all the other people were sitting with his family. Unfortunately, it was right by the toilets, so everyone would go in that direction before they left and would then see him there.
I vied at the bar with Gareth Thomas. He came to Salisbury. There's a lovely old pub called the Haunch of Venison, and I found myself at the bar. I turned to, "Oh, it's Blake." And I didn't sort of say, "Oh, Mr. Thomas, I'm your biggest fan." But no, I kind of he kind of looked at me as if, "Do you recognise me?"
Yeah, absolutely.
And I thought, "No, I won't go there. You go first, mate."
Also, Gareth Thomas must have been in Salisbury in the early 90s. I would have thought because they made that show Chelworth, which was sort of, I think it was one of the sort of replacements for Harrods Way, because they did Trainer, and then that didn't last very long. And they did Chelworth, which was set at the big house on the hill that overlooks Cheltenham. So presumably, whilst he was making that, they would have stayed in Salisbury or somewhere like that, unless they had digs in that big house. I don't know, but maybe went somewhere else for drinks. But I imagine there would have been drinks. Going
back to in the playground, they back in '78 when the Key to Time was being shown. I had I was starting a new school, and I met a friend of ours, David, who my first encounter with somebody that wasn't just gay now, was gay then, although in a sort of embryonic form. And he absolutely idolised Mary Tam and wanted to be Romana in every Doctor Who game we played, which was great. I got to be the Doctor all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas I had lots of friends who were tomboys, but luckily this was around the time of the Five Doctors, so we knew we could all play different Doctors. All the girls wanted to be different Doctors, so we sort of. Thank goodness for Five Doctors.
So you had female Doctors before it was.
They were playing. They probably some of them were playing John Pertwee, some of them were playing. But yeah.
I remember one of my first Doctor Who memories. I was born in '73, as Paul, and it will probably be about Sharda, which was filmed in Cambridge, obviously. So I've recollections of that, but then I'll be watching sort of old episodes, and I will get that kind of. I'm sure I did see this the first time around, and although at the moment I caught a bit of The Invisible Enemy this morning, which obviously great Doctor Who, but it's a bit of a 3 out of 5 for me. Some of it's a bit hard work.
That was the one that was responsible for making me never miss an episode, dyed in the wool fan. I really impressed me at the age. I saw it at the age of 9, and whoa, it blew me away.
And I know you folks were visitors to Longleat. I remember my brother going to the Doctor Who exhibition in Blackpool, not because of the amazing content, plus the fact I was too young to go for some reason, but he lost his coat. So if you do word association and you say Doctor Who Blackpool, I just say afternoon in CNA, because I had a very disgruntled mum sort of taking him into CNA because he's lost his coat. So yeah, my brother got to go to Blackpool exhibition, but I did.
By '84, I think we were in Staffordshire for a holiday in the summer of '84, and I worked out that it was a reasonable distance to the Blackpool exhibition, and I nagged for us to go to the Doctor Who exhibition Blackpool. I remember my dad, for whom Blackpool would have been exceedingly vulgar and really not his cup of tea, just stayed the whole of the time. He just stayed in the car, sulking presumably.
Right.
That's what teenagers are supposed to do, not parents.
Yeah. It out-sulked each other, I think, in the 80s.
Yeah. My dad used to do that when we'd go on fledgling package holidays to Spain. The rest of us would be like, oh, it's nice and warm, and there's stuff going on in the evening. My dad, he would have one of those little travel hot water boiler things to make his cups of tea. He'd bring his own tea bags. He'd have his shortwave radio so he could listen to the World Service, and just a stack of crosswords, and pretty much like your dad staying in the car. My dad would just basically stay in the hotel room.
Yeah, that was.
I think my sulky teenage years can literally be isolated to possibly one trip to Spain. Because I remember going to Spain. We used to go to Marbella, sometimes with my great aunt, sometimes Easter holidays. And I remember going on a holiday, and I took lots. I don't know if it was sort of Target books with me, or Agatha Christie's, or a mixture, and basically spending that particular holiday mostly reading. And also, I remember finding a copy of. Considering when it came out, this must have been quite late 80s. But I suppose I was only in my mid to ish teens in the late 80s. but yeah, I've had a copy of Decade, the first greatest hits of Duran Duran, and I play that a lot on that particular holiday as well. Unless I'm confusing different holidays, but of course I've recently discovered my 1990 diary, which has got so much in there that's still relevant to now, as far as the things I'm talking about are either things we talked about on the podcast or.
And I kept a diary back in '90 as well. So one of these days we must.
I think when you come over,
compare.
I think that's one of the things we should do when you come over to my house on Wednesday. Is I should read some extracts because you get, and you should if you can bring your diary with you, we could do some recording about that and do that then because it makes sense to.
Because we were doing a lot back then, weren't we?
Yeah,
discovering London.
Well, that was the first sort of because we went up to Forbidden Planet, and I don't think I realised that you hadn't gone up to London much.
No,
but because you're old, because you're so much older.
I'm so old.
Well, I thought I'd be okay going with Nick because he's older. But actually, we were all as sort of new to London as each other. So
I think that was the first time I'd ever been. Well, that time I went up with you. That's the first time I'd been up without my mother.
And I think that's when I discovered my Tomorrow People power for years. I'm not sure I've got it now, but for a while I had very good sense of direction. Or like if I went back, which Warren and Troby would disagree with when I'm playing Fortnite. There's somebody coming at the left, and I'll go right. I'm not very good with left and right, but I think I'm quite good. Like if I've been somewhere, and then I go back to a few years later, I was like, oh yeah, we have to go this way, and I think I managed to help us get back on track on that particular trip to Forbidden Planet. That's when my.
It was always the Fitzroy Tavern where I could never find. I think I eventually found
Fitzroy Tavern. Yeah, I went there quite on a monthly basis for a while.
Where is that? It rings a bell.
It's near Goose Street. It's near Goose Street Station, a little bit down towards Tottenham Court Road, and then off into the Fitzrovia slightly. But it's not that far off the big roads. But
I probably would have been. I lived in London from 1997 till 2000. So I had sort of 5 years in London. I sort of did my sort of tour of duty. I was working in Elephant and Castle. When I first moved, I was in Swinging Camden, which was, sort of quite, it was quite a happening place to be, but not very good for the bank balance, unfortunately.
I do wonder whether we were ever at the same gigs or because Callum and I was going to gigs with Callum often in Camden. I met Callum in '96, and by '97 we were regularly going to gigs. So yeah, I wonder if we were ever at the same gig, but before we knew each other.
We used to often go. We'd go to gigs at the Underworld and the Electric Ballroom. And the Electric Ballroom had a really good indie night on a Saturday night as well, which we'd often go to. And it was literally, less than 10 minutes walk from the flat that we stayed in. So yes, but a long time ago now.
I started clubbing in London, very late 90s into early noughties. But that was things like Pop Stars
which I went to as well. Yeah. My then girlfriend's gay housemate was really a fan of Pop Stars. I've got a very amusing story which I can't really tell at the moment about Pop Stars, but I'll save it for another time. It has the punchline stand and deliver. That's all I'm saying. Because
for when I first met Callum, we used to go to the rather ropey nightclub in Camberley, which it wasn't that ropey, but the music was a bit ropey. And it was
Is that the one I?
Yeah, you had
2 New Years.
Yeah. I mean, it was fine, but the music wasn't always ideal. Whereas
less than anything Salisbury's got now.
but there's a bit of a revelation going to places like Pop Stars where they actually had floors where they'd be playing if you're in the mood for indie music, or if you're in the mood for pop music or dance or whatever, you could just go from floor to floor.
Yeah. I mean, my earliest clubbings were Concords in Salisbury, with Warren amongst others. But you were just a wee. Well, you were. I
was too young. But also, I didn't start dancing until later on. It wasn't really until I met Callum that I started going dancing.
But at the end of the 90s, we used to go to a club in Woking, didn't we? I can't remember what it was called. It was upstairs, and they always played Ma Baker, and there was always.
It was more of a bar that turned into a nightclub. It was because most nightclubs tend to be in dark spaces, whereas there was glass that you could look down onto the street in this nightclub, and it always used to steam up once you got everybody in there dancing.
Is Ma Baker the song? This shows, if I've been paying attention, that either one of you two used to do the actions to a Boney M song, or have I sort of barked up the wrong tree? I'm sure there was a story about one of you going to a nightclub and there's a certain song and you basically acted the song out. Does that really
well, I mean...
I think during Ma Baker, I remember one occasion where Paul and I were dancing to Ma Baker because there's a certain, not formula exactly, but a structure to Boney M's songs. And there's always a bit where they pause, and they in Ma Baker where they put on the news thing, and on Rasputin they put on "But when it's drinking and lusting and hunger for power." So I think we mixed it up. So when you got to the news bit on Ma Baker, Paul turned to me and said, "But when it's drinking,
that's it." Yeah.
But I used to, Callum and I used to mime to "Girls Just Want to Have Fun." The bit where it goes all sort of and Callum would come and put his head down and I'd pretend I was that the sound was me playing on his head,
a bit like the Ewoks playing Stormtrooper helmets.
Keith and I used to do the actions to Lost in Music. Lost in Music, in a trap.
Also, I mean, that was the other place, not just nightclubs. It was the amount of weddings I went to in the noughties. Always sort of getting the opportunity to dance then. And are people being quite surprised that you knew a song? Which isn't surprising to me. Like, they were like, "Oh, how do you know that?" Like, if there was a song and a guitar came in, and we started doing the air.
Yeah.
But that's because it's a really famous song. Of course I know when the guitar comes in, or of course I know when the drums come in here. Or
I do remember.
Have you never listened to music ever?
Ali and I went to, I think it was a wine bar in Bath the day Prince William and Kate got married, and we were watching the service on this great big screen, and they had the hymn "Guide Me, Thou Great Redeemer." And Ali and I were singing along, and this young girl turned to me, "Oh, do you know this song?" Yeah, it's one of the great hymns, but hey.
Indeed.
I mean, when we went to, because another opportunity for dancing was conventions, and when I first went to my very early
they did ask you to sit down because it was the middle.
Yeah, in the middle of the. I'm sorry, I just wanted to have a dance. But there was like a disco, those conventions like Exo Space.
Michael Sheard.
Well,
I was just going to mention Michael Sheard. Yes, did you dance with Michael Sheard?
Well, that was when I was more confident. But the very early conventions I went to, which is probably, I think the first one was in that 1990 Derby. I haven't got to that bit yet. I'm very interested to find out what happened. What did I do? But I remember there being a disco, and maybe you going through it, but me being too scared and running. Yeah,
that was it.
And me running away, and I think I ran away to see Mr. Trowbridge because I knew he wouldn't be seen on a dance floor,
and still wouldn't.
And
right,
the migraines had to come back in, but then once I got used to going to dance,
to the end of the 90s,
I was like,
there was no stopping it.
Yeah, no stopping it.
And I just remember it was in Coventry, wasn't it? A Battlefield convention, and we would go onto the dance floor, and there would be Nick Courtney in the bar having a drink with people, and we'd come off the dance floor about 1 a.m, and there would be Nick Courtney in the corner having a drink with people.
Yeah, because there wasn't always that. A lot of the guests would come and do their bit, or they maybe even stay for the cabaret, or they certainly do their bit, but then there were the others who did more than their bit for long after they'd been the bit they'd been paid for or whatever. No, I'm sure nobody told Michael Sheard to go to the dance floor, but he stayed long beyond, because he did it because he enjoyed. He
did. He had about 10 years before he died, where he just absolutely threw himself into conventions, and he was just amazing and just gave so much.
I loved him on the Period of Mars commentary. And then, just before he comes in, he's like, "Oh, this is a good bit coming up." Yeah. This is like bigging himself up. Yeah.
What was so infectious about him is he just absolutely loved his job, and he loved people loving his job, and he just was absolutely just there, and very proud of it. And we lost him far too young.
Got to be in one of his books.
We did.
I was just about to say there was a book. I can't remember which one of you folks contributed to. Yeah, we all both did. I think I might have read.
Toby and Lisa actually. It was the yellow one. I can't remember.
The yellow one. I think we might have read the bits from it. In a previous episode.
But again, he's just full of love for everything he's done.
Just before we depart from dancing, I think for me, I was the archetypal painfully shy teenager, but sort of as I got a bit older into my later teens, and probably with the assistance of strong drink, I sort of gained confidence and stuff. So yeah, I could actually sort of talk to a female for longer than 5 seconds without sort of...
It's so difficult. I went to an all-boys school and I hated it. It takes you away from girls at the very time you need sociologically to get to know them and know, because they change drastically from 11 when you wave goodbye to them to go to this big school to 16 when you find you're out in the open and you think, okay, so what do they want? What do I say?
Yeah, I've got a brother who's 6 years older than me, and he never seemed to sort of have any issues about sort of talking to girls and things and stuff, but because of the age difference, when I got to that sort of awkward age, he'd gone off to university, so I felt a bit of like a sort of single child by then, and a sort of bit sort of out on a limb. But I suppose a bit like Paul, I think in my 20s, I sort of made up for it.
What do you mean? I have a sister who's 8 years older than me, and she got married when I was 10.
Wow.
And so I didn't even have a sister to knock me into shape. Make it up as I went along. It's tough. It's very tough.
With my brother being younger, he did get into. There was a stage where during Britpop where we were both into the same music, and also he was probably watching because as Nick knows, there was a cupboard in the hallway of my parents where I had a lot of my videos back from when you'd video stuff off the TV and make a little library. And then when I started buying horror films, and I'm sure my brother saw horror films earlier than I, like 18 horror films, because my parents wouldn't necessarily realise what he was watching properly or what was in the cupboard. So when I moved away, perhaps I'd left the videos. But because otherwise we're quite different. Like we were watching that Sutton Park clip, that tape that you were digitizing. There was a whole plot line where Graham was playing hockey at a school hockey match. So I was there. I wouldn't have been interested in watching him play hockey other than there being a possible Sutton Park plotline. So I went with my mum and videoed bits of him. He was a goalie, so it was really pretty boring. There was lots of running around, but I did some quite good shots of people playing hockey. But my brother's just standing there in the goal, like posing or wiggling his hips like he's a showgirl.
It's quite a nice one because you've got lots of Salisbury. And it's a very snapshot of the time because I was working at a newsagent at the time, and you got a nice shot of that and me.
There's all my cats of that time as well, my parents' cats. So I think I'm going to put that tape once I've got it. I'm going to put that tape and release that just as a.
What year was that again? Would you say?
That was 95. 95, March 95.
Right.
Because one of the great things is obviously in the 6 years we've been digitalising Sutton Park, I've learned a great deal about how best to do it. And there was a system that my friend Keith introduced me with turning it into an MKV and it's the first time we've been able to actually rip the whole of that tape rather than just because it used to cut out after a certain point, and then start again for the last 5 minutes.
Some of the Sutton partners on YouTube is half an hour chunks, or then there might be chunks that are just 15 minutes, or even some bits that were. When I loaded them up, I realised, there's only 30 seconds on this.
Exactly. So that annoying little coda you used to get at the end, where basically where it would just cut off the end of it. I found a button on my transfer machine, which I can, if you click it on, it will just take the whole thing, and in the right ripping software that actually just do the whole thing wholesale. So you get complete set of episodes.
The trouble, one thing, the pros and cons of digitizing, obviously it's so good to have it available, but digitizing doesn't cope very well with swift movement. So if I'm like looking around, or the camera's looking around, that sometimes digitization doesn't. We were saying, but we were watching. The tapes have survived so well. The tape we were watching from '95, I can imagine perhaps some of that will stutter a bit in digitization, but watching it on the screen, it was really, really good quality still, even after, but the thing is, a lot of these tapes have only been played, that they were recorded. It's the opposite of the old story of TV companies reusing the tapes. Those tapes were being used once, perhaps only played once in 30 years or 25 years. So once you've got them working again and they're playing, that they're often very good quality.
And as far as us the missing ones, there's only one tape of 1999 that's missing, and about 2 of 2000, and that's it. Basically, that's
right.
They might still turn up because we have got to the state. We have got to that things turning up from behind. Filing cabinet stage now, where things do something.
We're not looking as far as Israel, or
I was just going to say, you've not been to like sort of Kenya or somewhere, to like some Nairobi,
we're having to sneak it through wars and things like that. But no, I mean the nice thing is they are out there. I know that there's about 2 of master tapes of my films that don't exist anymore, unfortunately, because the director, having insisted on keeping them, then threw them out. I don't know why, because Andy Candish, who directed Evil Trophy, Rosie Lenz, and Ditch. I actually kept the tapes for Evil Trophy, and he ignored it him a bit, and he wanted to keep the tapes for Rosie Lenz, but I actually had to use. We really had to do a patchwork job on that on the DVD, because we didn't have the master tapes of the original VHS-C stuff with the same format as yours. That's the other thing. People lend you their cameras, and they were completely different sort of formats. It was maddening. That's why I really should have got it.
With more proper like TV archive type shows where episodes are missing, I can understand where there's like. We know why so much of Doctor Who is missing, but it's a few examples. But I've said this before, we're so used to very good, detailed information in Doctor Who fandom. All the paperwork was kept, and it's been compiled, and it's, you know exactly what countries bought it and where possibly they might be or not be now. But it's series that aren't so well documented. Like, I still don't know why one episode of Dark Shadows is missing. What happened to that one episode? What and it's one of the late ones. It exists in audio, but I don't actually know why it doesn't exist. The physical reason why it doesn't exist. And I recently have been watching episodes of an Australian show called Cop Shop, and that's got like 700 or 800 episodes, and one episode is missing from about 1984. And again, I'm like, I want to know why. Why is one episode missing, and what happened to it? Why that one episode?
Also, going on this whole thing that you were saying about the paperwork still existing. I remember Fraser Hines in an interview talking about the Ice Warriors, and he said, "Do you know, I found all this paperwork saying how much I earned, how much this cost, how much Patrick Troughton earned. Why didn't they throw the paperwork away and keep the programme? It's very true. It's madness.
I know we touched on it recently because I had a bit of a Tomorrow People binge on BritBox, but I know Tomorrow People is a bit sort of a sore point for you, Paul, because it basically replaced Ace of Wands. Is that correct?
Yeah. Although I was too young to pretty much see either show, so it's been it's not like it was at the time. Don't know how I would have felt at the time if I'd have been
I don't have a grudge in that respect. I like Ace of Wands, and some of the scripts were better than the TPs, but I thought the TPs was a much better concept. And I remember the TPs mostly sort of. I think I caught a set of repeats in the summer of '75. Which accounts for why I remember Blue and the Green, Rift in Time, and Secret Weapon. And then I started watching with One Law. Because I was buying Look In by then, and there was a big feature about Mike Holloway when he first came into the show.
Oh yeah.
I've only watched one episode of the rebooted American one, and I thought, well, to myself, they don't seem to have the same restrictions as the TP, they can kill, they're violent, and I thought to myself, well,
oh right,
isn't this kind of defeating the object of it? But I'm one of these days I'll probably have a proper look at it. But I've got the '90s ones on DVD as well.
But I think the ideal situation would have been that Ace of Wands would have just been made for adults, and they could have both existed then, because there's nothing really childish about Ace of Wands. It could have been an adult program, but then I've been watching a show called Tales of Unease that came out on Network, which is like 7 proto Tales of the Unexpected, and they just made that one season, and I don't know why they didn't try and make another series. I mean, they're all quite good, but I don't know. There was more of that thing. They did just make one series, particularly ITC things.
Yeah,
they would just make 26 of them or whatever, and then move on to a different thing.
Yeah.
What's fascinating for me, my wife Angelique's French, is introducing her to British TV, and especially old British classic TV. So obviously it's not ITC, it's ABC, but the Avengers was always very big in France. And I'm trying to think what else.
We have France to thank for the new Avengers as well, because they had a champagne commercial, and they said, don't you want to do, are you up for some more Avengers? And it's the French that put up a lot of the money for that.
Yeah, and a few weeks ago I was watching Space 1999 in French as well, which is quite first series, I hasten to add, yes.
Well, is there, does she like what she sees? Is there a particular favourite show that you've introduced her to?
Touching on, I think, something she's grown up with. Her sister is the one that really enjoys the Avengers. She really enjoys the Persuaders. She likes the sort of interplay between Tony Curtis and Roger Moore. Angelique's big thing is Poirot. She can't get enough of it. And obviously, ITV3 is basically just wall-to-wall Poirot. But an interesting, we always have a sort of Poirot sort of in the background. But interestingly, because we've got French TV, we've basically got French Freeview here. They have Poirot on French TV. So you hear David Suchet dubbed into French, if you can get your head around that one. And it's quite a bizarre situation. I'm trying to think we've been going through a few sort of streaming things. My wife's a teacher at what's best described as a challenging school. So she's quite enjoyed lots of things where men sort of go around beating people up. So like the Jack Reacher thing, and there was another one as well, the Jack Ryan thing. She quite enjoys coming home after a hard day doing battle in the classroom, watching people getting beaten up at the moment. But we were in the Lakes the other week, and we did watch Power of the Doctor, and she enjoyed that. But again, it's interesting that obviously Doctor Who is so ingrained with us, but you mentioned Doctor Who to Angelique, and it's David Tennant. David Tennant's Doctor Who. Whereas I'm like, no, Tom Baker, definitive Doctor. She is really fascinating because she's not sort of grown up with it. I mean, she was born in 1977, but like she doesn't really have that much experience of sort of classic Who. I mean, obviously, I sort of surreptitiously, sort of pop one on, like I sort of had Horror Fan Rock on the other day, and but she's just very much grown up with New Who, so it's interesting to sort of get that sort of perspective from somebody. Yeah.
Well, also they can surprise you. I mean, I've been all the 22 years I've been with Ali. We've always had a Who on the go. Because I knew she liked Scotland, I think the first Who we watched together was Terror of the Zygons, and I think we had been married about 10 years before I plucked up courage and sat her down to watch Time of the Rani.
Right, fair enough.
It's probably my least favourite classic Who, and I thought, okay, I'm sorry about this and everything, and lo and behold, it was one. It's probably the one she was most nostalgic about because she used to watch Sylvester with her dad.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
And she has very, very fond memories of the McCoy years because she I think when McCoy took over, her dad sort of came back to the show and started watching it, and she watched it with him. And so, in actual fact, there was me kind of a. And she was like, "Oh yeah, lovely. I used to watch this with my dad." And I thought, really? But, yeah. So you never can tell.
It's funny. It's funny. I was thinking how many shows I saw for the first time overseas. I can think of three examples. One being a trip to Portugal in 1990, and I had sunstroke, and I think that's the first time I ever saw Sons and Daughters, and the first time I ever saw Space 1999. I think it must have been on some channel that was English language. I don't remember it being subtitled or dubbed. And then talking about France, I think I remember being on holiday in France, and they must have had Super Channel on the satellite, and I think that must have been not in early 90s as well, or considering when we were getting tapes. But that's the first time I saw Seeds of Doom, or some of Seeds of Doom, was in France on Super Channel. Before we had copies of Seeds of Doom, so
that must have been at the most 80s.
Yeah, it must have been.
You had a copy by. Certainly had a copy
several
by
copies. I even had the 3-part version. Not like the edited version.
Yeah, I think you at one point you had about 5 different copies.
I still got quite a lot.
Yeah.
I went through a stage of, I think I must have about 3 DVD copies, because went through a stage of every time I went down to Folkestone and we go to Canterbury, I'd be in HMV and I'd see, around that, I don't know what's available in HMV of the ones that still exist these days, but
quite a bit. We raided. We went to Scotland recently and raided the because still loads of HMVs left in Scotland. We went Blu-ray bananas. We bought the Blu-rays of Space 1999 and UFO and goodness knows what.
But I'd be standing in HMV in Folkestone and be going through the Doctor Who's, and they're like $4.99. So Seeds of Doom $4.99. I can't fancy watching that tonight and just buy another copy. So I've probably got copies. I mean, it's not even out on Blu-ray yet, so there's still that version to come. And
the vinyl record, you'll probably have that framed, won't you? If they read that on vinyl.
I'd be quite. The 6-parters on vinyl was a bit more expensive because they need to be.
Darling Master Plan, you have to take out a mortgage for.
Gosh, yeah.
It's very expensive.
In terms of sort of day-to-day TV viewing, do you watch a lot of, shall we say, mainstream TV, let's call it BBC One, ITV and stuff? Because we don't here at all. I mean, we catch the odd thing on BBC Four.
I'm always hoping that, because the guys at work in the office, they're always talking about, I binge watch this. Have you watched this? No, don't tell me what it is. And I think this is utter bilge. It sounds utter.
Yeah.
So where occasionally something will come up. We'll we'll watch Talking Pictures.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Whereas, if they're running we're just about to press the self-destruct on In Eden Line. We've done the 6 episodes, and I would have thrown it under the bus earlier, but Ali sort of no, let's give it a whirl, and because we usually do we used to do something called our Sunday special, where we watch an episode a week of a particular show on DVD, and I'd have a choice, then she'd have a choice, and then we moved it to Monday because they were putting juicy things on Sunday nights on Talking Pictures. And now we're moving. So UFO is moving into the An Eden Line slot because we're halfway through rewatching UFO. So it'll be UFO tomorrow instead of An Eden Line. But no, it was all right. We were just bored with it, and they weren't very sympathetic characters, and we just didn't want to see An Eden ruin his brother each week. It was kind of painful to watch. But no, we've virtually nothing. We've always got some DVDs lined up that we're watching. Yeah. I'm doing Space 1990. I'm doing some of the episodes that maybe might grate on Ali whilst I'm doing the ironing on my day off, and I'm saving the best episodes to watch with her. As I say, we're halfway through. Well, actually, we're on the last disc of UFO. I think we're between the Who's at the moment. Because I'm not a huge fan of New Who, but I will dip in and out, and I'll like what I like, and I won't like what I won't like, and but I bailed out with Peter Capaldi's first season, and didn't watch it for about 3 years for various reasons. And I said to Paul, having watched Power of the Doctor, I said to Paul, but I think I'm ready to go back now and just watch all the ones rewatch him from the start, and Joe, the episodes of Jodie that I missed, and I'm gonna do with Capaldi and Whittaker back to back, and see what I think. I'm going to do little reviews on the dictaphone.
Oh, fantastic! I think I drifted off. I got excited when Capaldi came in.
And it's my versions that need covering. But
it's a season that stopped me watching Doctor Who after 40 years.
I haven't even opened it.
I'm playing with fire, going back to it, but sufficient time has gone past now, and I'd like to see a bit more of Capaldi and what he did. But I just didn't like the direction the show was going.
Sure, no, absolutely. In terms of our TV viewing today, we do watch quite a lot of French TV, because obviously for Angelique it keeps her in touch with home. And for me, it helps improve my French. But it's funny, they still have a version of Going for Gold on French TV.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's I think just something like Questions pour la champion, and they still have a version of Treasure Hunt on French TV, which I think originated in France as well. Yeah,
there's some of the 80s episodes in French on YouTube, which I've got bookmarks, but I haven't got around to actually watching it.
Well, there's all sorts of Talking Pictures stuff, old films that I come home from work and Ali's watching. I came home last night and she was watching a comedy with Danny LaRue from 1960.
I saw that on the TV guide, but I haven't seen it. But they do throw up some real curios.
Yes.
I did get to watch the Mutations the other week with Tom in.
Tom, that's the one Tom's in.
With Donald Pleasance, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get to see that, but there's occasionally they'll throw up a film that I'd really like to see that. It's crazy things. I've only ever seen little bits of French Connection, and they show French Connection, and I thought, let's just sit down and watch it. And I've not seen.
I don't think I have. I don't know. I got to the stage I don't actually know what we have now, but I don't think we have. I don't think I can get hold of Talking Pictures anymore, because our Skype, we got rid of our Skype box, broke down, and we didn't bother replacing it. And now I barely watch the TV. I just watch things on my laptop. So there's a few streaming things, and then it's DVDs or Blu-rays. So
there's a book I have down here called Films of the 70s.
Okay.
Now, I saw this in foils in the 80s and absolutely fell in love with it, because it had all sorts of interesting films I'd never heard of, films I had heard of, and it wasn't until Talking Pictures that I actually saw a lot of the films that they were mentioning about. Films they really haven't shown on telly for years, which is my favourite kind of film. You know, the really
yeah.
ones. There's one called Donald Sutherland film called Day of the Locusts, which they showed, and I thought, well, that's in the book. I've never seen it shown on terrestrial TV, and there it was. You know, when you sat down and watched it.
When I was watching Talking Pictures, it was when they were showing Freewheelers, and I know all of that doesn't exist, but they did. There are about 3 or 4 seasons I think they can show, and
was Southern TV your region growing up then? Sort of.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we were Anglia through and through. Yeah.
Southern TV, going back to Space 1999, and forgive me if I've already told this story on a previous episode, but I had the very weird experiences following Space 1999 in comic strip form a whole year before I saw it. Because when it launched in 75, Southern TV didn't get it till August 76. And I was getting Look In at the time, which were heavily promoting it. So I was seeing all these tantalizing, because I was already a UFO fan, and I was seeing all these tantalizing pictures and getting to know the characters through the features and the picture strip. So the following summer, when they finally showed it, I felt it was really odd to see these characters in the flesh, and it was weird to sort of experience.
With the Southern TV thing, I mean, I can vaguely remember that we saw some episodes of Saturday Banana with Bill Oddie.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Thing is, there was just about 2 shows behind that was our show, which was 77, and that had a very young Susan Tully in it. At the age of 9, I had a crush on.
Right.
So I defected from Swap Shop. Because of this cute girl, and of course she carried over to Saturday Banana as well.
Yeah, one thing that Angelique's absolutely loved, which was on Talking TV, was watching Runaround. She was just absolutely blown away by it.
My brother-in-law is in an episode somewhere. I don't know what year it was, but probably towards the end. But my wife says that apparently he tried to trip up another boy, and Mike Reed smacked his legs.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Probably wouldn't be allowed now. Yeah. But yeah, he was a bit of a tearaway. But he's in there. Probably, if they had the Salisbury one, there'd probably be a few lads there I recognise from the old days. So.
Yeah, I mean, Angelique loves her general knowledge quizzes anyway, and so that Runaround. Obviously, sort of, we were watching the kids run around, and she'll think, "Oh, it's this one, And I go, "Are you gonna?" Yeah. So, but yeah, completely confused by Mike Reed, and you explain to him, "Oh yeah, he was also basically an adult." I'll use that phrase, adult comedian.
Yeah.
Somehow, but I think the sort of going back to what you just said, the idea was, because he was good at putting down hecklers and stuff, that all these annoying little tearaways would be sort of easy pickings for him, basically.
Yeah.
So
he's a. I think I used to watch it. I'm not sure I'd enjoy it now, but I thought Mike Reed was a pretty good. Again, Look-In when it first started, Look-In did a feature on it, which I've got somewhere. Going
back to Anglia TV, Paul Labours was a massive feature in sort of mid to late 80s Anglia TV, and obviously because of my age I didn't realise he'd been in Doctor Who or everything, but he was what they used to call an Anglia TV Mr. Midnight. He basically did all the continuity throughout the night, and they're sort of slightly boozy teenagers coming back from night out in Cambridge, and sort of just grabbing anything in the fridge. You'd sort of stay up and watch him, and then I actually follow him on Twitter now. I've actually had a few chats with him and stuff. So
I've met him a few times. He's he's I'm on Facebook with him, and he's because I remember him obviously from Androids, but where we saw him at where was it? I can't remember who it was now. Who at the Playhouse about 5 years ago. That was a convention, and very nice guy. We've seen him. We've been in to see him, and I think his wife in a farce.
Right. Yeah.
She's just. My wife likes farces, so we went to see him. Now we've seen David Warwick in a Ray Cooney farce as well. So playing a dead body.
Sorry, as soon as you say Ray Cooney farce, do the theatre groups around Salisbury have the same affliction as ours? That sort of, it seems to be sort of like 96% Alan Ayckbourn that's put on all the time.
Its output is a little predictable.
Yeah.
Studio Theatre, who I poached a lot of their actors and indeed sort of in collusion with these days. They're Shakespeare mad. I find Shakespeare a bit hard work to work on, and I have to be in the right mood to watch it as well. So there's that. But yeah, I've done a few Ayckbourns myself. I did. Is it? Not Anyone for Breakfast. Relatively Speaking, I think it was one of his early ones.
Yeah,
that was a little bit. Yeah, it was rather a basic farce. It wasn't one of his particularly funny ones. And I as the curtains open, I was in bed. So it's very comfortable, because it can be nerve-wracking when you're going on, but that was the most relaxing. Waking up and suddenly finding you've got a hall full of people staring at you.
Sure.
And I didn't wear much clothes in that part. And there's a girl playing who's actually plays the brattish daughter in Smile Again. I've been in 2 plays now where I've proposed to her both times. In character, I hasten to add, so I've actually proposed to her a lot more than I had my own wife. But no, she was in that. But yeah, yes, we've the Ayckbourns we have known.
Indeed.
But no, I'd love them to put on something a little bit more experimental and a bit more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, our local group did Bedroom Farce, which I think starts off with someone in bed as well, on that one as well.
But I have slightly sore memories of Farce, because, well, good and bad, really, because I started Timed Alderbury Players in 95 with Happiest Days of Your Life, which I thoroughly enjoyed and got a girlfriend out of. So, which is always a plus.
The rest of today, you've got a takeaway in your thing.
We have, yes.
We've got TV.
We've got a couple of films. We've got an episode of Sexton Blake.
Episode of Sons.
I'm glad you finished that sentence.
Yeah, we've got an episode of Sons and Daughters,
and possibly Blake 7, because Paul's work, like yourself, he's sort of more focused on the post Blake.
Yeah.
And we've been working our way through the post Blake years. And you're up to Headhunter. Yeah,
and the Sons and Daughters I want to show you has Nick Tate from Space 1999.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
And he gets to have he gets to be involved in the season cliffhanger. So. I can't remember if he actually survives it, but so I hope it's not just like the recap and then there he's gone. But he's been in quite a few episodes leading up to this. But.
And then tomorrow, what's on the cards?
Tomorrow, we'll go our separate ways again.
Yes, I church serve, and
church stuff.
My boss is in Australia, so I need to sort of start it from scratch a bit. But we go to the pub for lunch, my wife and I, and have a snooze in the afternoon. And then it's UFO and a bottle of wine in the evening.
Sounds very reasonable.
Well, it's been good to catch up and to introduce you to.
Indeed, it's been lovely. Absolutely lovely.
Pleasure. Let's do it again soon.
But no, it's been lovely, and we'll definitely do it again soon. I got into the Shy Life podcast during sort of just the horrendousness of lockdown and things, and then from there, it's gone off into directions with Toby and Lisa, and then with your stuff as well. It's just been such a tonic over the last few years, and it's just always great to see sort of people doing stuff. And sort of doing creative things, and sort of
we've got some books out as well.
The good thing is that you made contact and told us that you were enjoying it because we've now been able to be collaborators and friends, which there are probably other people who really enjoy the show but never say anything, and they could be collaborating or we could be getting to know them. But so you're actually quite a rare
creature. You can go with creature. That's fine.
But we've both got quite a few bits of work out there. Mine can be found on the Cult TV site, which is run by Alan Hayes. We got actually Paul and I did with the series we did Life After with Joe.
Oh, okay.
Joe. That's the complete episode guide. We've got the complete episode guide of the previous series in the Magnet Editor, which I did as a child and then finished as an adult.
Uh-huh.
And we have a novelisation from both, which is available on Amazon.
Yeah.
A novelisation from one, a particular 4-part story from one, and a novelisation of a 6-part story from another.
True. That Magnet Memories hardback, if that could be, you could use that to defend yourself if you ever needed to. It's a
meaty book.
A meaty
Alan
book.
republished that on Amazon. The only way to get it down to a reasonable price was to turn it into an annual. So both of those are annual wise. And all these scripts are out there as well on lulu.com.
Cool. I will get more investigating. So that's great. And Nick, you're a bad man because you mentioned the W word, wine, and I was thinking, I'm going to be very virtuous, not have a drink. But I know you're having wine tomorrow. But I'm thinking, is the sun over the yard arm yet? What time is it? 3:30. It's 5 o'clock anywhere.
Well, I don't think the sun is making an appearance today.
There's definitely no yard arms either.
I am a bad man when it comes to wine.
Yes.
The trouble is, the older I get, the more booze I discover. I feel addicted rum of late.
I had a bottle of port with me down in Kent, and I managed to make that last all week.
Wow.
That's quite. A couple of glasses of that a day. I managed to last most of the week.
Oh, fair enough. So I'll try and hold off for a while, and
You're a brave man. You're a braver man than me, I think.
Well, listeners, that's all we've got time for. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. It was good to finally unite Muffley with Nick because...
pleasure.
There's one of those situations where, because Muffley was a listener before he was a collaborator and guest and friend, it's a lot about you, Nick, as he does about me.
About myself.
Well, yes, possibly. Well, as I was saying to you before, of all the people involved in the show, you and I do episodes that perhaps delve into our personal lives or our histories in a way that some of the other guests, they're here talking about.
I think I think up to a point we're both open books. We're both like to.
But whereas the type of we do so many different types of episodes. So if you get Martin or Toby and Lisa, we're talking about TV, or we're talking to the regulars and involved in what they're doing. But a lot of the episodes we do, especially like the random word ones or the film ones, we have dipped into our own anecdotes. So yes,
it's absolute pleasure. I hope we do it. Hope we work with them again.
Yes, I'm sure we will. Well, listeners, that's all we've got time for, as I say. So we'll be back in soon. There'll be a little bit more bits and pieces from the recording session after the end theme music, and we'll be back again soon. All right, take care, and goodbye for now. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Muffley.
on did.
Hold on, folks. We've got a special guest. Angie, come say hello. So this is the French voice you hear at the start of the podcast.
We can't actually see you, unfortunately, because your face is frozen.
Your video's frozen, but we can hear you.
I was wondering about that. Just hold on a second.
Yeah.
See if I can turn the video off.
I don't know if we turn off or
having technical
issues
such as
We'll have to run some music. Until then, here's the music.
Just bear with me a second.
Otter's wheel.
Have I you just got that's actually Muffley himself there, which so let's see if if the Angelique during lockdown, Angelique had these issues with no, it doesn't seem to want to see us at all now.
Oh, we've got a green thing.
Yes, you're all green screen.
Yeah. Well, you can hear her anyway.
Hello.
Hi.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Bienvenue.
Bienvenue au podcast.
Yeah.
There we go. You see, yeah. I'm not sure what's happening with the video here. It's as we know. No, screen of doom. Anyway, you heard, yeah. So let's keep going. We're all pros here. So
yeah,
she's there.
Hello. Waving in the wrong places.
Yeah. So she's that was a bit cheeky of me. I sent her a text about 20 minutes ago saying, "Can I have a cup of tea, please?"
Right. When I'm playing Fortnite with Warren, Warren's like, "Have you had your sherry yet?" Because when I'm at my mum and dad's, if it's before tea, I get delivered sherry about half an hour beforehand, or sometimes in the afternoon, depending if I'm paying at a certain time. My mum brings coffee. It's not because it's that time of day and it's happened. So.
I'm going to stick the light on.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, we're a little bit more visual now.
Whereas I'm the complete opposite, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I don't.
Interesting.
Right.
But it's an interesting green. It's sort of got texture.
Is it like a racing green? Or is it
it's more like a camouflage.
I think this has happened on a quarter screen.
I gotta go now. Bye. Gotta go. Bye.
Goodbye.
It's been good, but yeah, definitely time to come home now.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.
Oh dear. What's going on now?
Oh, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Let's go.
I have a voice. I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice. We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
Even though,
happy birthday to both of you, because I think you've just had yours recently, Nick, and Paul's is coming up soonish.
Yeah. Yes, 54, did you dare?
I can't remember if I told you when I had my COVID jab. The lady who did my COVID jab was from 1973, so we had a bit of a 1973 chat before.
But I've got that thing at work that we've got all these like sort of ridiculously clever graduates who are like sort of 24, 25. And you do this sort of mental arithmetic and work out when they were born. And it's just like, oh my God, I am ancient. I mean, Slade was number one when I was born. So yeah.
Well, then the Beatles were still making records when I was.
Yeah, true.
My friend PJ, who has the cat who looks like Monroe, he gets born during that 1990 diary, but I thought he might be interested. Like, what did you do the day I was born? But youngsters are not interested.
But it's like I'm working with a young lady who's 22, so she would have been born about the time my wife and I got together.
Right.
So, ouch. So I'm now people that weren't even born when I started with the NHS.
Or I started with the Department of Health in 1996. So when I started, I still didn't have a mobile phone. And what else? We didn't have internet at work at that time either. So
I think 97. I learned about the internet when I went back to college to study journalism in 96, and I had my girlfriend the year after was the first person I think I knew who had the internet, and she plays the internet. The girl who messes with the internet in Smile Again.
She's all connected.
We dated in 96. She's also plays the bouncer in One More Bow. But I actually split up with her the day I finished the script for One More Bow.
Right.
She doesn't have any lines in the last scene. And why she sort of reacts tersely to when two hits. I thought that's my little goodbye gift to you.
Oh dear.
But
yeah.
no, we were on good terms enough to she does both films with her then husband, now ex-husband.
Right.
So yeah, they were nice to work with at the time. A quick anecdote before we go. One of the things that inspired Prison in the Sun, with the whole thing of stumbling onto an advert that was being that's famous. It actually came from a real life experience. My girlfriend at the time and I went on to Bristol Temple Mead station, and they were actually filming an advert. So they had this fake train by a real train, and they had this fake broadcaster or the fake announcer. And it was like, I was like, this is weird. What if this advert turns out to be a cult favourite, and it goes on and on and on. Advert, or the Honey Monster or something. We are walking literally into history, and that got the old cogs going a bit. And
yeah.
What if you actually did walk into something that was a legend? And you knew it was a legend, but how did you know it was? And so you worked back from the idea. So yeah, that actually came from real life.
It's lovely when you have those kind of sort of ideas that just kind of sort of plant themselves and wave at you and say, yeah, let's run with this.
Similarly, One More Bow, the whole of that came from when Paul and I used to go to comic marts up in the centre of London, and I could have sworn blind I saw Ian Marter. At one of the hang on a minute, Ian Marter's been dead for 10 years. What about if the ultimate in convention experience would be if you got somebody back who had died, and you as a ghost, you have them at a convention as a ghost, and again you kind of work backwards from that. I love when random ideas sort of to come.
Yeah. Right,
Rich.
It's been a pleasure, and
absolutely
soon. And I certainly like the idea of meeting up.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, have a lovely rest of the weekend, and I'll speak to you both in some shape or form soon.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
He's not all that shy is right. Sheesh. You know what I wonder? What in the world size shoe do you think the Shy Yeti wears? I don't know. I just wonder. That Paul is a great guy. No. Paul's a great guy. Great guy.
587.
Probably have to wrap things up.
I hope that Shy Yeti bathed today. That's all I can say.